The ocean was unusually still that morning, the kind of deceptive calm that made the surface look like glass, hiding the restless power below. At the massive marine park in Clearwater Bay, hundreds of spectators filled the stands, the air buzzing with anticipation. They came for the thrill, the magic of witnessing humans and apex predators performing in perfect harmony. But for Jessica Radcliffe, the park's most beloved orca trainer, this was more than just another performance. It was her life's calling, a bond forged through years of patience, compassion, and unshakable trust with the ocean's most misunderstood giants. She had no idea that within the next hour, the waters she loved would turn into a stage for her most terrifying, and final, moments. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in honoring the courage of those who give their hearts to what they love, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. It means more than you think, and helps keep stories like Jessica's alive for the world to remember. Jessica's journey with orcas began as a little girl standing barefoot on a weather-worn pier, staring into the deep blue and dreaming of the creatures that swam beneath. She grew up in a small coastal town where the ocean wasn't just scenery, it was the heartbeat of the community. Her father was a fisherman, her mother a marine biology teacher, and Jessica inherited a piece of both, her father's grit and her mother's tenderness toward the sea's living treasures. From the moment she saw her first orca in the wild, a towering black and white shadow slicing through the waves, she knew she was destined to work with them. When she finally got the job at Clearwater Marine Park, it felt like destiny fulfilled. The orca she connected with most was a massive male named Kairo, a 9,000-pound apex predator with a history as stormy as the sea. Before coming to the park, Kairo had been rescued from an illegal capture operation, found starving and injured. Most trainers kept their distance, wary of his unpredictable moods, but Jessica saw the pain in his eyes. Day after day, she stood at the edge of his pool, speaking softly, offering food, and never rushing the trust that would take years to build. Slowly, Kairo's aggression softened. The two became inseparable, performing in dozens of shows where their synchronized leaps and spins left audiences breathless. But under the glitter of applause and the flash of cameras, Jessica carried a burden few knew. She was aware of the growing debate around keeping orcas in captivity. She had read every scientific report, heard the stories of attacks, and knew the risks better than anyone. Yet she told herself, and others, that Kairo was different. He wasn't a statistic, he was her partner, her friend. Still, the unease in her heart never fully disappeared. The day of the accident began like any other. Jessica woke before dawn, sipping coffee while the world was still dark. She walked into the trainer's prep room, lacing up her wetsuit, and reviewing the day's schedule. The final show of the afternoon was to be the biggest of the week, over 600 tickets sold, VIP guests in attendance. As she stepped out into the humid air, she noticed something unusual about Kairo. He circled his pool slowly, his head barely breaking the surface, his movements tense. She chalked it up to the warm weather, but deep down, a flicker of worry stirred. The show began flawlessly. Children squealed with joy as Kairo surged out of the water in a perfect breach, sending sheets of spray into the first few rows. Jessica beamed, guiding him through a series of jumps, tail slaps, and playful nudges. The crowd roared as he leapt high enough for his shadow to fall across the stands. Then came the grand finale, a dramatic sequence where Jessica would dive into the water, swim alongside Kairo, and be lifted onto his rostrum as he rose triumphantly from the pool. But the instant Jessica slipped into the water, something changed. Witnesses later described Kairo's demeanor as unnervingly still. He didn't immediately approach her. Instead, he dove deep, disappearing into the blue. Seconds stretched like minutes as the audience waited for him to reappear. When he did, it wasn't the smooth, controlled glide of a trained animal, it was a rapid, almost predatory surge. Jessica felt the shift instantly. Trainers are taught to read the subtle language of an orca, the flick of a tail, the angle of a dorsal fin, the tension in the muscles, and everything about Kairo's body screamed danger. Before she could react, he lunged, gripping her arm with terrifying force. The crowd gasped as the water erupted into chaos. What followed was a blur of splashing, shouting, and frantic whistles from the other trainers. Kairo dove, pulling Jessica beneath the surface. She fought to stay calm, knowing panic would only make things worse. She tried to signal to him, the hand cues they had practiced countless times, but it was as if he no longer recognized her. The water was no longer her stage, it was his world, his rules. When they resurfaced, Jessica managed to gasp for air, her eyes locking with those of her colleagues on the platform. She shook her head subtly, urging them not to dive in, knowing it could endanger them too. It was a final act of selflessness, a silent plea for others to be spared. Kairo dove again, and this time, he didn't resurface with her. The rescue team acted instantly, deploying safety nets and using underwater sound cues to guide Kairo toward a separate holding area. Minutes later, they were able to retrieve Jessica's body, but the damage had been done. She was rushed to the on-site medical unit, where paramedics fought desperately to save her, but her injuries were too severe. Jessica Radcliffe was pronounced dead at 4:27 p.m. In the days that followed, the park closed all shows indefinitely. Candlelight vigils were held along the waterfront. Thousands of letters poured in from around the world, from people who had never met her but felt touched by her dedication, her courage, and her love for creatures that most would fear. Jessica's story became more than a tragedy, it became a symbol. A reminder of the delicate, dangerous beauty of the relationship between humans and nature. And perhaps most importantly, a testament to living fearlessly for what you love, even knowing the risks. If Jessica's story has touched your heart, I ask you from the bottom of mine, please like, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Every click, every comment keeps her memory alive and helps us tell more stories of courage, love, and the bond between humans and the world around us. Special request to comment: if you believe Jessica's life should be remembered not for how she died, but for how fiercely she lived, write, "Jessica's light lives on," in the comments below.